Good morning, everyone.
Hello everyone.
We're here at year's end, and it's a more quiet time, and it's also a time that is suitable to look back on the year. Um, we were saying on a daily basis, there is a practice of a prayer of examen, where at the end of the day, you look back on your day and you say, what has been good in this day? What was life-giving? And to contemplate that. But also, what did I find really difficult? What was a real challenge for me? And then also, what is my expectation, my hope for tomorrow? But one can apply that to a year as well, looking back on a year, all the experiences of that year, and the overall feel of that year. What came to the fore? What announced itself? And we thought maybe in a little lighter vein, I don't know whether
I don't
it's
know whether
lighter,
it's so light.
because in the Afrikaans we said it's light, but then we touched on some heavy stuff.
No, we go deep so quickly.
Yeah. But we thought of looking back on our year and just see what can we take out of it. So starting with you.
Yeah, I think for me it was a difficult year. Starting around May, I started having very bad heart palpitations, which made me feel very, very vulnerable. Basically because I couldn't find a pattern, it sort of started out of the blue, so it really threw me. One start to be very anxious and have all sorts of thoughts about your whether you're going to wake up tomorrow. So really very bad in terms of that. So for me, the rest of the year has been one of trying to find out what this is about. So we had a lot of help and had really good medical tests done, and but all along, you would go through periods of saying, no, this, it seems to be okay. The first basic test shows really nothing seriously wrong. Relax, and then you work yourself up again as if it really starts to get really severe again. So for me, the year was one of being very busy with our work, with the pottery, with workshops, retreats, all of that, and underlying having this anxiety all the time, this feeling of vulnerability, which maybe, or not maybe, which definitely is also a good exercise in realizing that I do not have everything under control, or will ever have everything sorted out and know how to handle everything. I think also in terms of getting older, that one has to start realizing that you may need to accept help more and more, which is not easy for one to do, but which one will have to graciously and gratefully accept.
Yeah.
And we've had that experience this year also with not having a medical aid and having the type of help that we had. So in the end, and it's just this week been confirmed that I really, really have a very beautiful and healthy heart. Veins, arteries, everything is really, really very good. No reason to worry. Little bit of an electricity thing going there.
But don't we all suffer from electricity?
So just so that you all know, it's still disconcerting because we only have one heart. I was saying to the cardiologist, I have one heart. I've become a grandmother. I really, truly, I'm not scared of dying, but I would like to live this life. I really enjoy living this life and being a grandmother and doing the things that we're doing. So, yeah, so for me, the year has been one of fighting worry. and of trying to not let it control or be the overall feel of the year. But looking back, I've been anxious a lot this year, and that has definitely colored the year for me.
Looking back now with the results coming out, because this week we're currently in Pretoria for the last tests that you've gone through, and with the results coming out and the findings and so on, against that backdrop, looking back on your year, would you have done things differently?
I think it was very human to have these worries, and I think in a sense it took me on a very good spiritual journey in terms of looking at my mortality or vulnerability, looking at my life, and also looking at if this should be close to the end. Do I feel that I've been busy with what I wanted to be busy with in my life? Do I feel my life has been rich? Do I feel there's things that I should rather be doing? So it really, in all, I think it was a meaningful year, not easy, but a meaningful year in terms of looking at my life. So I don't think, I wish I could have been less anxious, but in the middle of the night we are not rational. So, yeah, it would have been easier if I could control the anxiety. But I think that again is just this trying to keep, I think accepting the situation would have been easier. Would have been, if I could, in a way, accept that this is, it's like you're fighting this thing in you. You're not going with it and saying, I was saying to George, it's like my heart wants to tell me something, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that you're pushing too hard. You need to calm down, because this year has been really hectic for me in terms of, and a bit of a disappointment in myself for coming through the period of COVID, where we experienced that very the slowing down of things, the having time, the
getting to essence,
having that slow rhythm. And I was saying, this is how it should be, this is how we should live, and really wanting to take that from the time of COVID into my life. And this year has seemed to be like almost like catching up for everybody. Everybody was just catching up to what they felt that they missed out of. That's the way it feels. And for us as well, the tempo picked up tremendously this year. So, yeah, all in all, the year has been a trying one for me. For you?
Yeah, it was also worrying to experience this heart problem along with you. So there's this concern. On a personal level, and looking back on our work, our contemplative work, the work on the retreats and the workshops, and also these recordings, it feels as if it was a watershed here. For a very, very long time, we've been doing groundwork. The contemplative spirituality, I don't think it will ever be mainline spirituality. It's too countercultural, and it's too counterintuitive. So in other words, it's a lot of people say, but this is too difficult.
And the ego fights it.
And the ego fights it and say, I'll find an easier spirituality, a spirituality that plays into my ego, and you get a lot of that type of spirituality. Um, so I don't think it will ever be mainline, but it was ground laying work. And that has been going on now for more than a decade, I would say. Slow work, patient work. And it is as if this year things opened up. And it's almost as if there is fruit on what has been done before. New connections made, collaborations, new avenues opening up. You were busy with a spiritual direction training, which is very, very, you found it very rewarding.
Yeah, that's the one I would say, almost like a light. What do you call it? Like a highlight of the year is this course that I'm doing in spiritual guidance, and just the richness of the content has really been wonderful for me.
So in that sense, and I think the recordings and the feedback and this wide conversation.
It's as if the community has widened.
Yes, tremendously.
Which is wonderful.
And the content of this huge conversation is so wonderful because things pop up. People struggle with things, struggle with health issues, struggle with personal issues. And in this conversation, we get to wonderful places. So in that sense, it feels as if it's the start of something bigger. And that next year will be an extension of that.
A further opening up, widening.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So in that sense, almost being excited for the year ahead, for 2023. Because a lot of things changed in that sense.
I think you also made a couple of decisions in terms of the work, the physical work that you do.
Yeah. I think, and maybe in the Afrikaans recording, I didn't touch much on that, but I think the fact that I struggled for basically 2 years with the tennis elbows, that played a huge role, because during that time I couldn't do anything. I couldn't make anything. And often I would say to Matilda, if I could suggest anything to God in terms of design, the elbow isn't really designed for strenuous work. But looking back, it's almost
not
like...
Not the way that you were doing, it's definitely.
Yes. It's almost like a safety valve or a warning sign. And I think one should tap more into what our bodies are telling us. And my elbows were telling me things. So after that, I'm not taking in outside project anymore, commissions and so on. And it's actually a daring step, because it cuts off, one can argue, it cuts off a source of income. But I have to listen to the whole picture and say, all right, I have to take care of my elbows because they are sensitive. I think they might have been damaged to the tendons and so on because of overuse. And I have to make the pace slower.
But I think also the whole mindset around doing commissioned work usually has a due date.
Yes.
And the tensions that goes along with that. That doesn't help in terms of the way that we live our lives, with a lot of things happening at the same time. People on retreat, a commission to finish, pottery orders, a workshop. So it's very difficult to...
And crises.
and then maintenance, all of that. And to stick to the time frame that is expected for that commission
Very
work,
true.
Causes a lot of tension, and maybe doesn't play into the way that we feel we should be living a contemplative life.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's how my tennis elbow started in the first place.
Was really overexerting yourself.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So in terms of that decision, but also, and it all plays into each other. It's really listening to your body, looking at your life, and discovering this phrase. I picked it up in reading in my reading as a Zen Buddhist term of Wu Wei, of effortless doing, where they say, without doing, things get done. It is such a beautiful phrase, and it fascinates me. But more than fascinates it, I want to live that way. In other words, get into it. It's also a matter of, and we in the West struggle with that. We have our time frames. We have missions and visions and 5-year plans and targets to be reached. But this is a slower pace of focusing on the essential, and also getting into the rhythm of nature, and witnessing nature, how things get done in nature effortlessly.
Yeah. Each one season changes into the other one. There's no pushing the river.
No, that's important. Don't push the river.
Yeah.
Flow with the river. And it plays into the whole contemplative spirituality. It's not foreign to that. It's actually such a nice expression of that.
Yeah, and we were talking about what would be a Christian contemplative phrase that could use in terms of something like Wu Wei. And we were thinking of James Finley, who talks about the stance of least resistance. To be overtaken by what is happening, by the love, by the care, by the flow of things, because it really is that. It's not sitting back and doing nothing. It is doing the next thing that opens up without. And I think there's a lot of accepting what is in that,
without being or becoming a pacifist, or
or staying in a situation that, if accepting what is, and if something needs to change, then also, I mean, with my heart thing, I to accept it for what it is, but to just sit back and say, oh well, hopefully this will sort out, or I won't wake up tomorrow, or whatever, is also not Wu Wei. Logically or practically, one would say, okay, we need to see what this is about, and then that is the next thing that you do. But it's not so much of pushing it as of being open to what should be happening next.
Yeah, much a listening stance also, as to what announces itself. There's such a beautiful phrase that says, the best thing to do when it rains is to let it rain. Often when it rains, we say, now we can't do this. We have to change our plans and so on. So in other words, rain is an interruption. And so many things in our lives we approach not with a stance of least resistance, but with
we are resisting it.
Ultimate resistance.
Yeah, as if we can change anything about it.
We fight everything almost.
Yeah.
Instead of getting into this slower rhythm of things, and also a discovery for me, or maybe not a discovery, I don't know what is the term, but we have the contemplative spirituality, and to make that your life, not to only pay lip service to it. It is a spirituality that is so rich and practical, a spirituality that says tap into effortless doing. Everything belongs, even a heart condition. How does it fit in? Everything belongs. And a spirituality that helps with inner work, where the inner work is just as important, and finding yourself is just as important as finding God, because the two are intertwined. And to really live that spirituality.
Yeah, it's not so much something that you practice. It's something that you live.
Yeah. I think it is Thomas Moore who said, my spirituality is so baked into daily living that the two are indistinguishable.
Yeah.
And I want to live more out of that, where spirituality, daily living,
The same thing.
they baked into each other. And the contemplative spirituality helps with that. So in that sense, it's been a fruitful year and a rich year amidst the concerns and the worries, but a good year. As we said last week, this is a more quiet time of the year, and we hope that you and your loved ones have a more relaxed time, with businesses closing and people going on holiday. May it really be a fruitful and a restful time for you all as well.
Keep well, everyone.
Bye-bye.